Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Podcasters, your favorite D&D tabletop gaming podcast station for all things Dungeons and Dragons and the like. Because currently there is one campaign underway on our YouTube page and in the streams below. Streams previously, wherever you're listening to this. Listen, guys, we currently have a campaign going. It's the Saturday sessions. It's fun. There's a lot of fun stuff coming ahead. Apart from that, Greg is in the works with a new project. He's he's working on a new system that's going to be involved with more of Monster Base, which I'm very excited, but I don't want to drop anything more until he's ready to, so we're going to zip it at that. But welcome back for another episode, and you're probably wondering if you're watching going, all right, cool, we get it. It's not a campaign. What is it going to be? This is actually a new series that we're going to be doing. I don't know if it's going to be weekly, bi-weekly, or how frequent, but it's going to be me and a good friend, Benjamin Nichols. We're going to be discussing and diving through the plethora pages of the monster manuals as it is appropriately named the Monster Manual Monday, wherever I have it up on this overlay. Being said, or if you're listening to it, it is Monday, so hey, guess what? It's a new monster in the manual for you. And today, I'm going to let Ben kick it off because I was like, well, what should we go for if we're going to jump into the monster manual? And I didn't know if I was being cliche, but I mean, what do you think, Ben?
Well, we decided on Beholder to be the first one, and for me, it is probably the most iconic and definitive Dungeons and Dragons monster there is. If you watch, film, TV, you delve into a lot of things, it really only exists within the monster manuals, and it was created by TSR, so that is kind of like one of their monsters.
It's one of the only few ones that they actually hold like Creative Commons or creative licensing, like this is theirs. I saw actually in some fun facts is, did you watch the movie, what's it, Onward from Pixar's?
I've not seen Onward yet.
Okay. Never mind, because I don't want to spoil
anything
okay. Else. But I apparently there's a Beholder in it. I didn't witness it, but there's more stuff I was going to say. I'm going to backtrack and not say anything else.
Oh, cool.
But I guess they did actually have a Beholder in it, and they in their credits they did do a thank you to Wizards of the Coast for letting them use the actual Beholder, which is really cool. Which I actually want to go back and watch over. If you guys haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's on Disney Plus. It's really fun. So yeah, we're going into Beholders. So how many Beholders have you tackled against in your dungeon mastering playing of this game?
Well, I have to say, I know I've used the classic one in my very first campaign. I've done some things where I had the opportunity to do some playtesting for Adventurers League, and I got to run a Beholder Flamekin. That was in a tower in an arena. And so as this gladiator fight is going on, this Beholder is protected by an armored tower, but there's a vent where he could fire all of his eye rays out in different directions. And there was fireball and scorching rays, and it had its central eye was very different than the typical Beholder in that it made you vulnerable to fire attacks. So if you were locked in its gaze, you took twice as much damage from everything it was shooting at you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a level 17, 18 adventure. So I'm not surprised that it was just made to be, we have to just up the ante as much as we possibly can to take on players of that level and those capabilities.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I think the only one I have ran with was the first, very, very stereotypical, I guess, of me, of the first one of the first sessions I tried to run as a dungeon master. I needed a big bad villain, so I threw a Beholder in at the parties. And I'll say, as a new DM, probably not one of the monsters you want to try and run with as the villain or run as the big encounter. I feel that's my opinion, because it's so much to worry about, because you're worrying about the eyes, all the eye stalks on the reaction turns. You're worried about the central eye, plus you're levitating, so you have to realize that your movement isn't just a standard linear on the ground. It's now floating in multiple dimensions. Let's get into this. So one of the first monsters that were really big with Dungeons and Dragons, one of the most iconic, I would say, and it was created by Terry. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's Kuntz. It was one of actually Gary Gygax's friend's brothers, which is cool from what I learned. Was created for the Greyhawk Adventure, or he incorporated him into the Greyhawk module for the first edition. And then it was published after. And on my phone, I actually found a cool snippet out of a article from I think it's Dragon Magazine.
Yes.
From before. And it was entitled The Ecology of the Beholder by Ed Greenwood and Roger Moore. And I figured before we get into this really good discussion, I just kind of want to read a little bit of this because it was really cool that I can see where the purpose of Dragon Magazine really came from in a day where they don't have on-access tool sets to how to run and manage and play these monsters. I guess maybe the dragon, like through this description, kind of gives the idea of how would the monster play as well as how would the players play against the monster. And as a sage was talking and teaching to students, or teaching a class and speaking to a class, pulls up to a spot where it says, where is he saying? The beholder is shaped like a great sphere, almost the height of a man. The body is covered in a sphere, or covered by several hard plates of chitin, which overlap one another, slightly protected the internal organs. Magical organ called the levator magnus, located in the center of the body, surrounded by the creature's brain, produces and influences that causes the beholder to float in the air. Then it goes on to talk about how from atop the armored sphere project 10 eye stalks, each of which has a limited maneuverability and field of vision. These eyes, however, do more than just see. So I didn't think about, how do you want to break this down? What do you think? Do you want to talk about the classic stereotypical beholder character sheet, or not character sheet, the monster sheet, and kind of do a little bit of the background of them? What do you think?
Well,
You want to tackle this?
I'm saying we'll just start like looking at the numbers and work our way through it.
Yeah. So,
and it's a good way to go about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to focus heavily reading through the actual monster sheet itself.
Oh yeah.
But just kind of like break down, kind of like, all right, cool. So what do we have here? Do you have it pulled up on your end?
I do, actually.
Sick.
So we're gonna look at 5th edition, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at 5th edition.
All right. The reason I ask is because I did some digging. So I am all right.
So I figure, guys,
mentioned before though was about how that it can fly, and one of the things about it is because it doesn't have any mobility aside from flight. One of the things that makes it so unique is that it doesn't have to, its lair and its living space doesn't have to conform to like how we would have to in our natural world, where we require a ramp or stairs or a ladder to access something. We have to move in certain dimensions because we're limited to how we're able to move.
Exactly.
Whereas like a beholder can just go straight up or at an angle, and like these very sharp edges that would be impossible for somebody to climb, because it does have the disintegration ray, which allows it to carve through rock, stone, wood, dirt, lava, anything it needs to.
Yeah. So that's why I think it's really interesting, is that especially with the layers, that this is a creature that really is, I'd say this is one of those, if you want to throw a curveball at your players, it really throws them off their game. This is one, like, I get it. A dragon is going to be dangerous. A giant will be dangerous to fight. Heck, a lich, very deadly to fight. But the beholder, you got to be careful to fight. is the way I
Yeah.
see it. It's not a simple, I'm going to go in and hack at it. You got to be smart about this. So let's just take a quick glance at their stats. I'm just going down the list real quick. Let everyone know it is a large aberration, lawful evil, armor class of 18, natural armor. Hit points, it says 180. I mean, I don't know. How do you work on that when you see a hit point counter? How would you think? Like, do you go by what the book says for hit points? Do you roll for that, or what do you do?
So in the instance of a beholder,
Mm-hmm.
in having a lot of experience playing D&D 5e, 180 hit points is nothing. So with a beholder, because I want it to be like, typically speaking, I don't use it as a minion. I use it as I would use it in a position where it's leading somebody, or it's at the top of a society, or it's intended to be a very strong adversary, a very iconic. This is going to be a set piece encounter potentially if you do run into one. So I'm somebody who would typically like max out its hit points. That way they're, because when you think about D&D, a round is technically, as written, it is 6 seconds.
Correct.
And if you win that fight in 3 turns, which might take you 25, 30 minutes, in the world of the game, that just was 18 seconds. And 180 hit points against a group of, say, 4 characters is really nothing. Even if you're taken by some kind of surprise by it, and your group, your party, like fighter, paladin, like the guy who's that brute force guy, even if you get him off, like you don't get him off the ground, you probably still have somebody who's got some high level magic. I mean, level 13 characters, we're talking 7th level spells right now. Really powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Even 5th and 6th level spells. And despite the fact that it does, I think one of the things that I don't appreciate seeing is that it was not given, rules as written, any legendary saves.
It wasn't. It only has the legendary actions. I've never noticed that.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I like to add to it. And I do that frequently with any encounter where I want something to be a little bit more, just somebody who's a little bit more difficult to beat. Or I give them, like, I mean, he does have some very strong saves, with the exception of his dexterity save. His dexterity save is a +2.
Yes.
If you look at that stat as written, and you throw any area of effect spell at it as a 13th level caster, you will do massive damage or disruption to this creature very, very quickly and very easily. Because, and again, their lack of dexterity comes from the fact that they don't have any agility to them. They don't need it. It's not part of their physiology. They're more so a very mental villain. They're extremely intelligent, which is one of the things that I will criticize this edition of D&D, because when you go back to earlier editions, they're listed, they didn't have the same number system, but I was going through my, which number was it? One of my monster manuals this morning, and I took notes, and I had wrote down about how their intelligence is listed as exceptional. I wouldn't consider a +3, which is well above the average. I don't know if I'd consider that exceptional. I would think that would be more in the realm of a 20 with at least a +5 modifier to be considered to have an exceptional intelligence.
Now, how do you figure out that it has an intelligence save of +8 though.
Yeah, but that's, so when you get into the crunch of the game, that comes from, to balance its proficiency bonus.
Okay.
As if a player would. So even a person with no adequate save, like with no bonus to their save, would still have some kind of a little bit of a chance if they're proficient.
Okay. All right, I mean, I'll give you that. I'll give it that then.
So I desperately feel like the one big change to it in 5e that it needs is definitely needs to have legendary saves. At least one. At the very least, it should have one. Especially if you're going to run it in, like, akin to Xanathar from the Forgotten Realms, where he's a named character. He should have the staying power of somebody who's in the lore of the realm. I mean, if you're going to take on a character that and has been around for, in our world, close to 30. They should definitely have a little bit more staying power,
Oh
in my
yeah.
opinion.
Now Xanathar, was he from previous editions or is he new to 5th?
He was written in, I can't remember the year, but he was in the Waterdeep box set. He's actually on the cover of at least one of the booklets in it, which I believe was 88.
Okay.
Was
All
when
right.
it came out. He's been around at least that long. He may have had mentions sooner than that.
All right.
Good City of Splendor.
Because I was looking up a little bit of Xanathar's history. I just didn't get a. It said about how the title had changed of the Xanathar was the title.
Yep.
But it wasn't. It didn't give me an edition or give me a year. It just said just gave me a timeline of like the actual Forgotten Realms itself, not player. Like,
yeah. So the book it would have been in that was Waterdeep in the North. 1988 was when it was published. And it was written by Ed Greenwood, who's very, very much the creator of the Forgotten Realms.
very nice.
He's done.
Sorry, guys, about that. Sorry, guys, about that. This is something newer for us. All right,
so we're doing it this way.
So Xanathar, he's been around for a while then, and he's iconic beholder, one of the more well-known ones. So I mean, so you think it'd be a more a better? You would mod it for like a +5 then for the intelligence if you were running with him. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. His perception +12, very nice, makes sense. He's immune to being prone, but he can still be held or restrained down. So, okay. Knows deep speech, undercommon. Passive perception is 22, very nice. Dark vision of 120 feet. And then we can get into his eye rays. So the eye rays generally for the standard beholder are all the same usually, but they can change between any of them.
Absolutely. That's one of the really neat things about a creature that is so alien. Because like the idea behind them is that they come from, depending on the specific setting that you're playing, the origin of them is a little bit different. Like, which realm do they come from? Do they come from the Far Realm, where if you're playing like Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms, which is in a sense another dimension of space and time, and they're incredibly, because they have this very alien intelligence. So our interpretation of them is that they're a bit crazy in the way that they think and the way that they're paranoia, and that they plan. Whereas like a test player might think 3 or 4 moves ahead. For Beholder, it might be 10, 15 moves ahead. Just because of how their minds work. And yeah, it does make for some weird like little things with them in their physiology. However, just because the body of it, say you were able to stun it or stop it, it doesn't necessarily mean that the tentacles, the eye stalks, are completely useless, because it does have those legendary actions where you could say that, you know, they're still firing, because it's almost in some ways that with the way it's designed, you know, they have the 10 different eye rays, and because of their you know, their madness, it's like inherent to them in our realm, that you can always roll randomly to determine which one goes off, and you can decide that maybe there's only a % chance that those eye stalks are completely stunned. And then for the central eye, even if you stun or, you know, cause it to go prone or something, if it's anytime that eye is open, that anti-magic field is in effect,
which is the ultimate kibosh that you could throw at a magical party.
Yes,
because I'm pretty sure this anti-magic, it makes magical items non-magical in the moment too, correct?
The only thing in the past that it doesn't usually affect artifact level magical items, because they're just too powerful for it to actually shut them down. But one of my favorite techniques with them is you get a group where they're fighting with it, and you put fly on somebody in the party, and you know make sure you, like one of the things when you DM a beholder is always like be very descriptive about that eye, whether it's open or closed. Let them always communicate to your players, because it kind of gives this little bit of why is his main eye closed and he's got 10 other ones floating around and examining everything. But it can be one of these things where it can definitely throw people off, because then when he does open it, you can use it almost as a surprise. So you have this person flying who is able to very much outspeed the beholder, because they're a very slow moving creature, because in a sense like you'd think like it's something that would hover in a place that potentially doesn't have gravity or atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
But then they ended up here through, and whether it be through a portal, whether it was a crashed spelljammer, whether it was summoned by something, whatever their origin and how they got to our world is very open to, what lore do you want to dig into, what is your story for them, for your setting. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about them. So then you have that guy flying, and he's got his sword, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to hit him. And the beholder opens his middle eye and shuts down everything. And then he just kind of tips and makes sure that eye is on you, so you plummet however far now that all of your magic has been disabled.
So I wish I would have been able to do a little bit more research, and specifically, like, this is really good, I think, advice for all DMs out there, because if you don't know how to run a beholder, it can be a bit daunting. I wish I would have thought of techniques like that, because there's so much you're going through, and the middle eye is dangerous. It is very, very deadly. I mean, it can easily shut down the party. I mean, you need any healing effect, instantly look at who's not wearing armor, shut down the magic user, let the eye stalks do what they do best. And then the minute you see people down, I'd say just kind of wait to see who runs at whoever's downed, and just be ready to open it on them, because they can't heal then.
Yeah.
Because it shuts down both arcane and divine magic.
Completely disables all magic. The other thing that's really interesting about them too is that because they're an intelligent enemy, in some of the books I was digging through as we were doing research for this, there's like if it's a party that looks powerful, there is a 50% chance that they will just open and negotiate, which I really enjoyed.
Really?
So one of the fun things about this enemy is that you really get to create some when you place it in your campaign, and this is where Volos, I think, really did a great job, because they had like personality traits as if you were creating a character to give it motivations, and they had little things for messing with its appearance, like just tables to inspire. And I actually I have a sketchbook where I rolled to determine what my beholder is going to look like, and I drew one for my last campaign.
Really? That's actually pretty cool.
The drawing's okay, but I'm by no means an artist. But
well, still,
it was fun to play with it. I mean, it's comparable to something that would have been in those earlier edition books where it was just a pen and ink drawing.
Which I will say it is, as far as for comparison from old school to new school, their early editions of Beholder, I mean, I don't think they would terrify me as much as kind of what I see now coming out. And yet still enough, it's like, I feel like if I was playing in the 70s and I saw this little like pencil and ink sketch of this like eye and the stalks that look like these tubes, so creepy. So really, really creepy. And I'm going to get into them real quick. So the eye stalks, what's really cool about these monsters is that, so when you're attacking, you can do a basic melee attack as an action, and then you can have your eyes shoot 3 of them. So is it, when you use this, would you use the bite? Is it the bite attack and then the eye stalk? Or is it one or the other? The way you interpret that?
Personally, I never use the bite.
Really?
Yeah, because so for a beholder, like eating is something, and this one, this little bit comes from, I think, I can't remember the name of the book, but there's a book for aberrations in 3rd edition that came out, and it talks about how, like, for them, eating is something that they don't require sustenance like we do, but they enjoy taste, especially when it comes to like meats and stuff. And each one will have certain things that, like, as any person would, they'd have flavors that they enjoy more than others. So their bite is just kind of more of a happenstance. It's like they have sharp, something they can do.
Okay.
But their real power purely comes from the eye rays. I think at least like a living beholder or like the higher formed ones would only ever use their eye rays.
Okay.
And one of the things I like is how diverse they are, such as, they have charm and paralyze, fear.
The I'll say out of all of these eye rays, so it's to go fear, slow ray, enervation. Oh, it's necrotic damage. I'll say that some of these ones are get deadly though, because I mean you can go straight from something as simple as charm, which can be deadly on itself, depending on how whatever the whatever the wisdom save is that the creature has to make. But the death ray and disintegration ray and petrification ray, like those are 3 like big bad villains powers alone individually.
Yeah.
Like death, like disintegration, like that's just like that's the over, like that's like you, that's the end game attack.
I ran an adventure where I used a zombie beholder, and that's one of the rays that, as listed, carries over, and 45 damage is a lot if you take the average, and even just rolling it, if you come below that. And a zombie beholder, I think, is a challenge 5 or 6 monster, so it's designed, for mid-level parties. And I mean, when you get hit with that, there's nothing left of you when you hit 0. I have taken out a player with that before, completely accidental. I wasn't like, the intent wasn't to wipe anybody out, but the world is dangerous in D&D, and sometimes
it is. It definitely is. I almost took out my brother with the disintegration ray.
Yeah.
Almost, like he was literally like 5 hit points away from it, and it was like, I think he felt that he should be more smart, a little more careful when running into combat, especially if trying to pick a fight. We kind of talked about the zombie beholder. That's one thing I do really find interesting, in as far as anything, that it drew me to the monster manual. So when I first got into D&D 5e, I got the books. I like to read the monster manual for fun. That's kind of why I talked to you about, like, hey, what if we dug through these and kind of talked about some of the monsters? One thing I love is that the beholders, they're all unique. Yes. And it's because I guess it is based on the setting, but from what I can tell, the general way how they are created is out of dreams and out of figments. They're created, they're spawned from themselves. And I did find an article where about in the older editions, they would lay eggs, I guess, in early editions, and I don't know when the change happened, but I like the idea that, the beholder goes to sleep, has a nightmare, gets paranoid that it's going to be attacked by another beholder, spawns one in its dream, is now attacked by it, and it's a different beholder. Like, that's the idea, that these things spawn themselves out of their own just will and reality breaking. I mean, it's not really magic. Like, that's the thing. That's kind of like the warlock, like some of the pact with the old one. Like that's not really magic. It's kind of, it's something different,
And that's the neat thing about them, is they actually, like, they have so much power, they shape reality around them. So when you look at, like, their regional effects, really shows that off, I think, well, which is where people start feeling like they're being watched within a mile of it. When it's sleeping, there's minor warps in reality that can happen, and that's just if you're within a mile of where one of these lives. So you have to, think, in Waterdeep, you have Xanathars, you have this city where at any point, something just completely insane can happen, and it's because Xanathar took a nap. Something to think about, too. And it could have nothing to do with your campaign, but it's just a little thing that you could drop into an adventure. The one ray that I feel like really gets overlooked a lot is telekinesis. And the reason why is that if it is an object of 300 pounds or less, there's no saving throw, and the beholder can manipulate it. The reason why I think this gets overlooked so well is because you could have, his minions build cages out of iron that could weigh up to 300 pounds. Most characters do not have the strength to deal with that. and this ray could just drop these cages on
Just
just boop, drop it.
that is a very interesting way to look at that telekinesis. I thought you were going to go off. I thought you were going to go in the idea that their ability to use telekinesis is like hand delicate, like they can use it to the fine motor skill details. And you just took in a completely different way of like, all right, no, as a DM, I'm going to mess with my players and good luck. Like I would never even have thought to incorporate like that. That's a great idea. That's a great trap scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like a beholder doesn't necessarily need, like, it may want to negotiate with you, or it may want to keep you for an experiment. It may want, because they're all so unique, and they're just as intelligent, and more intelligent than most mortals. So they can, they could have these reasons for things. Or for instance, they have like these hive mothers,
mm-hmm.
where you could have an entire beehive of beholders, where you have the lead beholder, and then you could have 5 to 10 standard beholders, and then another I think it's like something like up to 20 of the various like subspecies,
the lesser and the beholder kins.
Yeah, and then if you look to like AD&D, some of the beholder kin are weird. Like there's these they almost have like gorilla-like bodies, but they just have one central eye. They don't have a head. So it's like you take the head off a torso and put the eye like in your chest, and they have a mouth, and they're kind of like minions. They're foot troops, that can serve beholders. And you have these other things that ride like these centipedes around. And then you get the death kiss, where they have the tentacles, and they just kind of like float around, and they have like the tentacles just grab hold of people, and then like the barbs go into them.
The death's kiss are creepy because it's not even just shooting eye rays. It's all clinging and trying to suck your blood with shock magic. So I'm thinking like jellyfish style.
Yeah.
Like I don't, that's not something. They even got the creepy, like suckery, like pseudopod, like tentacles too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I mean, like the death's kiss. What scares me is the death tyrant, where if you die under the ray, under its ray, you come back as the zombie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the cool thing I learned is that with the death tyrant is that it can have, it doesn't have to make saves to be control of those zombies as well.
Yep.
So
if he creates them, they're under his minions. And what's nifty about that is you could have like an adventure where there's all these undead wandering around,
mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh shoot, there could be a lich, there could be a vampire, there could be a necromancer. Oh my god, it's a death tyrant.
I hope my party members are all watching, because guys, I am thinking about how to incorporate a death tyrant.
The other stuff to think about too is, you also have eyes of the deep that live underwater and
mm-hmm.
breathe underwater. So you have, if you do like a nautical adventure, you could have like a Sahaugan tribe that potentially worships a
mm-hmm.
eye of the deep beholder.
Or I didn't even think
of an aboleth and an eye of the deep at war, and their minions are against each other. So now you not only have to deal with the challenge of these horrible monsters who have an influence of the area, but then you have to deal with the fact that you'd have to somehow get underwater. So then that adds a whole other level of preparedness and spellcasting that you need to get to deal with these threats. What's the other one that there's another variant that I really, really liked too. Oh, the Gouth.
Yes.
The reason why I like the Gouth so much is that if you are somebody who's very much happy with your magical items, they live off eating and the destruction of your magical items. What more thing to be afraid of? And they're a great mid-level monster. Like, so you can kind of introduce a beholder-like creature that isn't so powerful that's running everything, but it could be aligned with some bad guys. It
mm-hmm.
could exist on its own. I used one once as a guardian for this like temple where this necromancer had this relic that he had left, and then he went to go pursue other things and was eventually destroyed. So the Gouth didn't was still there. So as the players discovered this location to this item, it became a race against another group that was searching for it. So then they got there and had to deal with the Gauth that was protecting it. Because of their, physiologies and stuff, they don't have the same like nourishment requirements, which makes them a really, is just same as an undead or a golem for a guardian. It's very helpful to a bad guy when you don't have to feed your pets.
Exactly. I like actually how you said that. Speaking about guardians, is that what I did find was kind of cool and makes me want to pick my brain is the idea of gazers and watchers. So I'm gonna always mix up the two. Which one is the one that you can summon to be able to like kind of stand guard for 100 years?
That is the spectator.
That's the spectator. Okay, so
They'll
sorry.
stick around for 101 years.
That's what I was talking about.
And they will protect it. They're cool because they'll protect whatever one thing or segment of things. But if other stuff that, like, say they defeat things or other things get left there, they'll let you have them. They'll negotiate that you could take those items away if they weren't the item that they were told to protect.
Which is really cool, and it's I actually had initially planned to have one incorporated in my first ever DM experience. I put one in a room and planned out this whole little encounter of like people fighting with it and like could they discuss it and try and negotiate like why are you here? And party never went there, but it still got me looking into it. I think it was one of the first times I started like experimenting and toying with the idea of variations of beholders and how I'd want to change them up for my own, because I do like that they can be literally anything. So the eye stock rays that they have don't have to meet the book. So if you're running a campaign and there isn't already a model up and you're like, oh, I want one that is all acidy based, make it that way. And there's no reason it couldn't be that way. I like how like even the bodies themselves aren't all the same. Like they're different material, textures, looks. They all have the general same. Was I think to be considered a beholder, it has to have a central eye, has to levitate, and it has to have. Is it I think 10 eye stalks, or is it a requirement of 8? I
want to say it has to have at least 8, but they can have claws, it can have tentacles. The mouth doesn't even have to be, like we always like picture it with the eye here and the mouth here, which really, that's just something that like, that's because it's what we're used to seeing and interpreting. But I always like the idea of the fact that, the mouth could be sideways, or they could, because they can flip, you could have the mouth on top and the eye beneath. Because they're such an alien creature, there is an artist, or, you want to add descriptions to them. DM, in a way you are an artist. You are creating the physical look, even if you're not the one sketching it. With your descriptions of them, they can actually really be anything. They could have spots. They could have spikes coming out. I think that's just what makes them so unique and so so fun, is because there's not this is what a beholder is. This is a broad idea of what a beholder is, but they can, there's just so much open stuff to them.
And it's even so much, they're one of those monsters that, like you had said, they can be as tyrannical and cynical that they are like Xanthar, where they're going to infiltrate, become the mob boss in Waterdeep, control, affect, be basically the head underboss of the under society. Or it can be as simple as a crazed creature that is just chilling in a cave somewhere, just doing its own thing, completely different. There is no set way to describe a beholder other than good luck, I feel.
Yeah. The other thing that's fun too is something that, because they are so xenophobic to one another, and they all assume that my shape is best shape, and just something as simple as, well, that guy's eye is an inch smaller than mine, so he's different than me. That makes it a bad beholder. Is that they will fight for territory, and one could perceivably drive another away from its location, its cave. So you could have this instance of an adventure where a beholder is traveling a forest, it's moving into a lake, it's going through a village as it looks for a new home, and that adventure could be, what do we do about this? Because this is a creature that most people can't handle to deal with, because it is, very powerful, very deadly, and just plain very frightening. Like, just to, personally, I know if I saw one, I'd probably freeze. If it was a real creature.
Oh yeah,
they're absolutely terrifying. Everything to think about.
And I mean, like, and let's be honest, to the common NPCs, which half a rated challenge or quarter percent of challenge it is, like they're not even like, it's nothing when you put that in scaled comparison to a level. Was it level 13?
Mm-hmm.
This is literally like this thing. You are a pet. You would be considered a pet to it.
Yeah. You're not much more than a nuisance if it wants, and that's the thing that just they're so cool, because it'll just, anybody who gets in its way is going down in one hit, or being charmed by it, and now it's like, yes, I will serve you, unless they're exceedingly lucky or exceedingly resistant to it. But I think
but even then, I mean, it's just going to continually charm you and cast it until you succeed, or you're just going to eventually, your will's going to be broken and you're just going to submit just because, which shows the how terrifying these creatures can be if being played in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I initially, the idea I had for Beholder was a Joker style.
Okay.
Where it's like pale white, got the creepy like red grin, like all themed up Joker. But the idea was that like it had a disease and it was infecting it. So it had infected two other travelers that had come into its cavern or its cave, where it was trying to toy and play with some technology, that the travelers had been killed and come back as zombies. But I gave them kind of like, like when the Joker fish, the clownfish from Batman.
Yeah. Yep.
Like that effect, where it kind of, the Joker gas basically turns them.
Yeah.
So when he kills you, you kind of get turned and twisted. Your face kind of goes crooked and like that.
Oh,
and
what an idea.
It's one of those I'm hoping to put, I hope I could play with them a little bit more at a future point, but they're everywhere. I think this is basically it'd be one of the most abstract characters in the DMG that I have ever found, other than oozes. And because oozes are kind of like, I mean, like they're just ooze. They just kind of like slurping around. Like, apart from that, like everything else is pretty much a monster, unless I guess it's stitched together. But then it would be more or less. It's not an aberration; it's a monstrosity. Right? Like if you're stitching, if you're like constructing a magical.
No, then it becomes a construct. Even if it was made out of organic stuff. Yep, it goes right to construct at that point.
Okay, so I guess then, like, I mean, I don't know. Would you agree that the Beholder's one of the most abstract of sorts?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because it just it just takes a lot of really cool powers, but it puts them in a package that is so hard to interpret or explain. And I mean, I think that's why we've had some really good supplements for them in the past, through D&D. And what's really nice is you could find pretty much all that stuff on, I believe it's all been moved to the DM's Guild, but Drive Through RPG has a lot of those old 3rd edition books, and they're a third of the cost when they were new. And some of those books are, I've been in the process of hunting down some of the Eberron books that I wanted, and I'm on the fence. It's like, do I really want to pay 3 times what this was new?
Plus, well, I mean, we'll get into that conversation after, actually. I have to ask you about 3.5 after all this stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, so Beholders. Scary. They're intimidating. Shouldn't sway away from them, I would say. If you're a DM, then just you have to go in with a lot more planning than you would anticipate. And I guess, so I know just from kind of common knowledge of 5e from looking into it, is that Xanathar's a known beholder, and he can be found in the Waterdeep book. What is it? Is it Heist of Dragon Heist of Waterdeep, right?
Yeah, Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
He's one of the main players in it, and I have to say I'm terrible. I own the book. I haven't even read that one yet.
I mean, I've been debating on picking it up or not. I don't know if it is worth. I don't know if it's worth getting it yet, because I don't know if I'm going to run a campaign to it. But
it's one of those ones that if you really want to do a very like urban, maybe Ocean's 11 style, or what I would consider like street level superheroes, you think like, you know, Batman, Luke Cage, Daredevil, people who operate within a single city and deal with a lot of the intrigue and not necessarily like world-altering threats, but they're dealing with something on a local level. It's a great module, and it has a lot of material in it.
So it's a good tier. It's a good tier 1 campaign, or a good tier 1 module to start off a good campaign with.
If you want something more classic D&D, you know, going through ancient tombs, stuff like that, this is not going to be that adventure.
But it does actually have some good NPCs from what I've heard. Plus, Xanathar is fun to get into. Apart from Xanathar, do you know of any iconic beholders that players could pick up any modules currently that, like, oh, this would be good for this one? Because I saw that there was a couple mentioned with Xanathar, or the current Xanathar that had come from before, but I don't know of any other, like, I don't know. I know Xanathar because his name is used, and he's a known beholder in Waterdeep. I don't know if you know of any other modules from before that used famous beholders, or other than just a generic. This is the encounter for this one part.
I want to think in the Rise of Tiamat, there is definitely a beholder in it as part of the story. And Rise of Tiamat was really, really fun. When I ran that at my game store,
which is
Heart of the Game.
There we go.
It's actually like, so this was actually before I started working there. So this was at my LGS at my old town. But we did it. We took the adventure and we split it up to a few different play groups. So we were all playing the same adventure, but there's all these hooks and threads. So each of the groups would decide, they would make parties and go off on the shorter adventures that are all part of the campaign. And then we culminated at the end with this big finale battle. But I definitely remember, I ran that when D&D was almost 5 years ago now. Oh my God. But I definitely remember there was a section with a beholder, because like there were certain enemies that you had points where you're trying to either defeat them so they couldn't join the cult of the dragon, or could you make a deal with them so they would join your side and fight against the cult of the dragon, whose effort was to summon Tiamat into the world to basically end it.
Very interesting.
And there's definitely the follow-up to Dragon Heist, which is Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I guarantee there's a beholder in there, because
there's gotta
be. Every version of Halaster's Maze that has ever come out, there's always a beholder somewhere.
I've never played Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I think I started watching a stream for it, and I fell off of it. It just, for whatever reason, I just didn't hook me enough.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little bit of like, knowing that I am going to be the DM for me and my friends, basically, I've kind of understood that. So I read through books, and I don't care. Like if you said, hey, let's go play Ravenloft, I want to DM it, I'd be like, cool. I'm going to metagame. I'm going to be able to break that tie. And I know my ground. There's few campaigns that there's few that I have been like, I don't want to, because I want to kind of experience this a bit in person. So like Waterdeep and Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I'm trying not to, because I'm like, I think I would like to play those ones and be genuinely surprised.
Yeah, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage as a module, I think it's it's a really good edition of the Undermountain, Underwater Deep. If you do want to watch something that kind of can help you like get a little inspiration for it, I don't remember what year it was, but Acquisitions Incorporated, when Chris Perkins was still DMing for them, he did one where they were in Hallister's mine, and they did a series of episodes where they were in the dungeon, and that was really neat because in Heat, Chris uses that dungeon all the time because it's so massive, and the magic keeps it like changing the layouts, and there's portals, so things just wander into it and they don't even know how they get there. Like they're wherever they were, there's a portal, they end up accidentally walking through that portal, and then boop, they're in the dungeon. And so that explains some of the insane things you can encounter in there. But he really likes to have expeditions into it for adventures that he's ran, which I really think is cool because it is a really great setting, and it's what you want. I feel like in D&D, which is a great dungeon with plenty to discover, which for me is a big thing. I love like exploring in D&D. That's one of my favorite aspects of it is as a player is being able to explore a place and go through, because I when I first played, we were taught get your paper out and actually draw the map.
Yeah. You know that there are rooms there that need to be uncovered. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't think I've actually ever I think I've watched Chris Perkins actually only play a couple of times. I've never watched him DM.
Okay.
So I'm very interested. And when I think he played, I think it was Chris Perkins that played Squirt the Kobold for like a half an episode from Critical Role. I think that was one of the first times. I think that's who it was. I'm almost positive he came out bro with the little. And I'm almost positive it is him because he has the kobold named Squirt that has it's like a druid where he has like a beehive type thing. Like it's all like rudimentary like advances that a kobold would have access to.
Oh, yep, Spurt, the kobold inventor.
Yep. Okay, so that is him then.
Played by Chris Perkins. Oh, how cool is that? I didn't know he was on Critical Role at all.
It was just like an app. It doesn't last long as
yeah.
As they run. I'm gonna let you. You know what? Watch at least, if anything, search up the episode or search up the clips, the highlights.
I will look for the clips of it because I can just he's a very humorous person.
Oh, and he was at the table for a good minute and then he left, and it was like, wait, who was that guy? And I didn't know who he was. It was like, wait, he's. And then I saw D&D Beyond Todd Talks. I'm like, oh wait, that's this guy. Yep. Oh, he must be he must be part of the Wizards of the Coast. And I started learning more from there. But yeah, I definitely recommend for that for a good time. But guys, thank you so much for joining. I think we kind of covered a good amount of Beholders.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it inspired people to, go do some more digging and discover some more things and draw some sketches of Beholders. Have fun with them.
Yeah, I mean, guys, have fun with this one. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you so much for watching. If you want, you can email me and podcasters your sketches of Beholders at podcasters tabletop gaming podcast at gmail.com. Send them in. Send them Beholder sketches. I want to see them. If you're cool with it, let me know. I will highlight them on the Instagram page as well. If you have a handle, I'll tag you at them. Let me know. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, coming soon to you, Twitch as well as the network, bicbp-radio.com. Follow, subscribe, hit like, comment, please, guys. I will say those comments, now that I'm learning more about those analytics of the videos and how much they are, how important they really do matter. So if you did like what you listened to, if you have any comments, any concerns, let us know below, hit like, and share it around. I was your Dungeon Master co-host for today, Anthony Mullen. Thank you so much. Ben, thank you so much for joining in on this. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Dungeon Master Benjamin on Instagram. You can also follow our Hearts of the Game Twitch channel. We go live every Thursday with a D&D campaign and other types of gaming on various days of the week, magic tournaments, things of that like. And you can also always find me at Heart of the Game in cheery old Buffalo, New York.
See you guys next time.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.